first supernatural occurrences began with the roses. 3 days after that sunset, when I foolishly whispered my heart's desire to the wind, I found a single wild rose on my balcony chair. Its petals were the deep crimson of secrets, its stem free of thorns as if someone had carefully removed them. I looked around, confused. Our house stands apart from others, and the balcony is too high for someone to reach without a ladder. "Mother," I called, holding the flower delicately between my fingers. "Did you leave this on my chair?" She appeared in the doorway, flour dusting her apron. "What's that, dear?" "This rose. Did you put it here?" She shook her head, a small crease forming between her brows. "No, perhaps it blew up from the garden." But we both knew we had no roses in our garden, wild or cultivated, and flowers don't fly upward on the wind. I placed the bloom in a small glass of water and set it on my writing table. Throughout the day, I found my gaze drawn to it repeatedly, as if it might transform into something else when I wasn't looking. The scent it released was intoxicating, richer, and more complex than any rose I'd encountered before. That night, I dreamed of walking through a garden where every flower whispered poetry in voices too faint to comprehend. The next morning, the rose was still there, looking as fresh as if it had just been picked. But my journal, which I always left closed on the table, lay open to a page where I'd written a poem about loneliness weeks ago. A single line was underlined, though I had no memory of marking it. "Some nights I feel the weight of unseen eyes. Gentle as moonlight on my skin, my hand trembled as I touched the page." The underlining wasn't done in ink but seemed to be a slight indentation in the paper, as if someone had pressed their fingernail beneath the words. "This isn't funny," I said aloud to my empty room, trying to convince myself it was a prank, perhaps, by my father, though he'd never shown interest in my poetry before. No one answered, of course, but the air in the room seemed to thicken, like the moment before a thunderstorm. I spent that day in town, volunteering at the library, shelving books and helping Mrs. Patterson catalog new arrivals. The familiar smell of paper and binding glue calmed my nerves, and by afternoon, I had almost convinced myself I'd underlined that line myself and simply forgotten. When I returned home, another rose waited on my balcony, this one pale pink with edges so delicate they appeared almost translucent. Beside it lay a smooth river stone, its surface bearing a natural pattern that resembled a swirling eye. My heart pounded as I picked up the stone. It was warm to the touch, warmer than it should have been sitting in the autumn air. I nearly dropped it when I turned it over and found another stone beneath it, then another, forming a small trail that led to the balcony railing. The last stone was larger than the others, flat and dark. Atop it, arranged in a perfect circle, were small white pebbles that spelled out, "I see you." A cold shiver ran down my spine. I swept the pebbles away with a frantic hand, sending them scattering across the wooden boards. The breeze picked up suddenly, swirling around me like laughter, lifting strands of my hair to dance before my eyes. "Who's there?" I called, my voice embarrassingly small. "This isn't amusing." Silence answered me, but it was a silence that felt alert, attentive. I hurried inside, locking the balcony door behind me, something I'd never done before. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the house settling, every rustle of leaves outside my window seemed magnified. I wrote in my journal by candlelight, the electricity in my room flickering unpredictably. Fear has a texture I never captured in verse, rough as sand against bare skin, cold as water seeping into bones. Something watches from spaces between moments, patient as the moon tracking across the sky, ancient as the stones that whispered to me today. Am I finally losing my mind, or finding something I never knew to seek? The candle flame bent sideways, suddenly, though no draft stirred the air. In its wavering light, I could have sworn I saw my shadow move independently of me, just a slight shift, as if it were adjusting its position to see me better. I slammed the journal closed and blew out the candle, preferring darkness to whatever my light might reveal. Morning came after an eternity. I dressed quickly and went downstairs, where Mother was already preparing breakfast. The normalcy of bacon sizzling in a pan and Father reading his newspaper anchored me. Perhaps I had imagined everything. "You look tired," Mother observed, placing A cup of coffee before me, bad dreams. Something like that, I murmured, not meeting her eyes. Father lowered his newspaper. You know, Elara, you might sleep better if you spent less time with those morbid poems of yours. Why not read something cheerful before bed? I nodded absently, having heard this advice countless times before. If only he knew that my poems weren't the source of my unease, but my attempt to make sense of it. After breakfast, I hesitated at the foot of the stairs leading to my balcony. Part of me wanted to avoid it, to spend the day in town or helping Mother with her preserves. But a stronger part, the part that had always pushed me to find words for the ineffable, propelled me upward. The balcony appeared normal in the morning. Light, no roses, no stones, no messages. I exhaled slowly, settling into my chair with my journal. Perhaps I had imagined it all, or perhaps someone in town was playing an elaborate prank. I opened to a fresh page and began to write about ordinary things, the pattern of clouds overhead, the distant sound of Mr. Henderson's tractor, the way the forest seemed to hold its breath in the moments before the wind changed direction. Then my pen stopped moving. The forest, something was different about it today. I raised my head slowly, eyes scanning the tree line. The wilderness had always been a constant presence, beautiful but static, like a painting hung on the horizon of our town. But today, it seemed to have moved closer. I blinked hard, trying to clear my vision. No, that was impossible. Forests don't move. Yet I could have sworn the edge of the trees was nearer to our property than it had been yesterday, as if the wilderness had crept forward during the night. As I stared, the leaves of the nearest oak tree began to tremble, though there was no wind. They shook more violently until several broke free, spiraling upward instead of falling down. I watched, transfixed, as they danced through the air in a deliberate pattern, forming what appeared to be letters before dispersing. Had they spelled my name? Or was my mind imposing meaning on random movements? A loud knock on the balcony door made me jump. Mother stood there, holding a basket of laundry. Would you mind helping me hang these? She asked, seemingly oblivious to my distress. Did you see that? I pointed toward the forest. See what, dear? The leaves. They were. I trailed off, realizing how mad I would sound. Nothing. Just a bird, I think. As I helped Mother hang sheets on the line in our side yard, I kept glancing toward the forest edge. It looked normal now, exactly where it had always been. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching me, waiting for something. That afternoon, I forced myself to walk into town, craving human contact to dispel the strangeness that had settled over me. The cafe was busy with the after-lunch crowd, and I slipped into a corner table with a book I had no intention of reading. You look like you've seen a ghost, Lydia said, sliding into the chair opposite mine. Her practical nature and no-nonsense attitude were exactly what I needed. Just not sleeping well, I replied, managing a smile. Writer's block. She signaled the waitress for coffee. Something like that. Lydia studied me with the same attentive gaze she used on her students when they were hiding something. You know you can talk to me about anything, right? Even the weird stuff. I hesitated. Lydia was my closest friend, but she was also firmly rooted in reality. She dealt with facts, with the concrete world of arithmetic and spelling tests. How could I explain roses appearing from nowhere, stones arranging themselves into messages, leaves dancing my name? I think someone's playing tricks on me, I said finally, leaving things on my balcony, moving my belongings. Lydia frowned. That's creepy. Any idea who? I shook my head. It's probably just the Henderson boys. You know how they are. She didn't look convinced, but didn't press further. We chatted about town gossip and her students' antics until the shadows grew long. Outside the cafe windows. I should get back, I said, gathering my untouched book. Mother will be starting dinner. Want me to walk with you? Lydia offered. No, I'm fine really. But as I walked home along the familiar path, the sensation of being followed grew so intense that I had to stop several times to look behind me. There was never anyone there, yet the feeling persisted, a presence just beyond the corner of my eye, moving when I moved, pausing when I paused. When I reached our front gate, I was nearly running. I burst through the door, startling Mother. Who was setting the table? Elara. What on earth? Sorry, I gasped, trying to calm my breathing. I thought it might rain. She glanced out the window at the clear sky, but said nothing that night. After my parents had gone to bed, I sat at my desk, staring at the blank page before me. The house was quiet, except for the occasional creak and settle. Outside, a nearly full moon cast silver light across my balcony. I began to write, not poetry this time, but a direct address, to whoever or whatever is watching me. I don't know what you want or why you've chosen me. If this is someone's idea of a joke, it isn't funny anymore. If this is something else. I paused, pen hovering above the paper. What was I doing? Writing a letter to what, a prankster? A figment of my imagination? Some supernatural entity? Before I could continue, my lamp flickered once, twice, then went out completely. Moonlight streamed through my window, casting long shadows across my room. In that silver illumination, I watched in horror as my pen began to move on its own, completing my letter in handwriting that was similar to mine, but subtly different, more flowing, with flourishes I'd never used. If this is something else, know that I have waited lifetimes to find one whose soul speaks in verses as yours does. Your loneliness calls to me across the veil between our worlds. Your words are bridges I can cross. Do not fear what you cannot yet understand. The pen dropped from my nerveless fingers, rolling across the desk and onto the floor. I sat frozen, staring at the words that had appeared on my page as if by magic. My heart hammered so loudly I was certain it would wake my parents. Slowly, I reached out to touch the ink. It was dry, as if it had been written hours ago. I turned the page over, half expecting to find more mysterious writing, but the back was blank. A soft tapping sound drew my attention to the balcony door. 3 distinct knocks, gentle but unmistakable. I rose on shaking legs and approached the glass door. The balcony beyond was empty, bathed in moonlight. As I watched, frost began to form on the glass, spreading in delicate patterns from a central point. Within seconds, the entire pane was covered in intricate ice crystals, impossible on this mild autumn night. Then, a finger, invisible but leaving a clear trace, began to write in the frost from the outside. Open the door, Elara. I backed away, bumping into my desk and sending my journal crashing to the floor. The sound seemed to break whatever spell had held me. I fled from my room, down the hall to my parents' bedroom, where I spent the night curled at the foot of their bed like a child frightened by thunder. I told them I'd had a nightmare. They didn't question why. At 23, I couldn't face the darkness alone. In the morning light, I convinced myself I had fallen asleep at my desk and dreamed the whole incident. But when I returned to my room, the journal lay open on the floor where it had fallen, and the mysterious handwriting remained on the page. Dark and undeniable. The balcony door showed no sign of frost, but a single wild rose, blood red and perfect, lay on the threshold.